All right. Good morning. Happy Monday. How's it going?
Happy Monday.
Okay, now you're drinking water in Coffee Club, which is totally fine because you're allowed to come as you are to drink what you like. But curious minds want to know, Moose, are you a coffee guy or a tea guy?
I'm a tea guy, very much so. And I couldn't find my tea, my prize Earl Grey tea. And I'm not going to give a brand name. I, of course, can't do that because they're not giving me any money. So to hell with them.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have a particular brand though? Like without saying it, do you have a version that you like the most, or is all Earl Greys delicious to you?
I have two brands that I
Yeah.
go to. That's my go-to two brands. There you go. Go-to two brands. So
Maybe we'll have to write them a letter. Be like, they could sponsor you.
one of them already know me pretty good, actually. So
Yeah.
I worked with one of them before when I was with Brownlee. So
All right. So they know you. We can make
yes.
it happen. Good morning, Jim from Buffalo. New York's in the house today. That's
Nice.
fun.
Right on. I love
We're just
America.
we're just giving people a moment to connect with us, Moose. But yeah, we've got people that watch from across the US. We have Norway that there's a regular Burge from Norway that happens most of the time. We've got UK watchers, lots of Canadians.
Right on.
It's fun.
That's awesome.
Well, I made a fancy coffee today. I felt, oh, I'm going to have Moose on the show. I'm going to make myself a fancy coffee. So I splurged during COVID because I missed having lattes once in a while. So I bought an espresso machine. I
Nice.
waited and waited. Like I've coveted an espresso machine for a long time because they're very expensive, and I'm a frugal girl. And so I waited and waited and waited till they were like 60% off. And then I
Oh,
finally got one. I was so
nice.
excited. And so every once in a while, I'll make a fancy one.
Oh, shopping tips with Jody. There you go,
I know
60% off.
you got to
Nice.
watch those flyers.
Ah,
People
gotcha.
think they're junk mail, but they can bring you good deals. Good morning, Cheryl. Yeah. So there you go. I never want to spend full price on anything. That's my thing.
I know what you're saying.
It's just not allowed. Angie's here. Good morning. All right. Well, looks like the gang's rolling in, Moose. So we will get going. But welcome to Virtual Coffee Club. This month we are doing a feature called Music Mondays, where we have someone from the music community come and join us. And Moose and I have known each other for how long now? I want to say
Oh,
we got to be pushing the 20 mark. Do you think?
I think
15
so.
for sure.
15 for sure, if not 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
so crazy. And I think the most fun thing for me is that when we first met each other, because you, before you became a solo artist, you would play in bands with other groups across the country. And I would meet you at we'd run into each other at Canadian Country Music Week and all these things. And we realized, I think it was a while in, that we both live in the same town.
Yes, that is correct.
And I had no idea that you lived in the same town as me until we'd probably known each other years before I even realized that. I was like, how did I not know this?
I know, it's funny. I got to see you I think it was in CCMA's, and I think it was London, I do believe. And I remember looking at you saying, I see you more in CCMA's than I do in High River.
I know. We have to travel across the country to hang out sometimes.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Busy lifestyle. I mean, you were on tour with artists like Chad Brownlee and other people for a really long time. You were on the road a lot. So you weren't really in High River very much.
No, I was not. I was only here to do laundry and go again. So that's all it was for years.
Check in on the fam jam, get a kiss, and hit the road. It was really
See you later. Here's the money. I'm gonna go make more. So yeah.
So there you go. Well, during COVID, you had, obviously, being in this industry, a big shift in what you did. And I think in that time frame, you ended up doing one of the biggest shifts I've watched you do. And so I wanted to chit chat with you today about that, because some people may recognize you, but say, Moose, I didn't know his name was Moose, because your legal first name is actually Greg. But through the last few years, you've got in touch with your Indigenous heritage. Tell me kind of how this fell into play for you, or did you always know you were Métis?
I was actually on First Nations. I'm Mi'kmaq. First Nations. Yeah, I know.
Sorry, my apologies.
You know, First Nations with a red beard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It throws you for a loop. Yeah.
Well, my mom is First Nations. My mom is Mi'kmaq, and my dad is Irish. So that's how I ended up here. kind of deal. I've always been proud Indigenous. It's just something that I never mention a whole lot about. Being a side guy. Nobody really cares what you are. They just want to make sure you can just do the show. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
about it. You're the hired gun, and that's it, right? But the guys in the band, like they always knew that I was First Nation and stuff like that. And so like that's the thing. People who are around me like knew it, but I didn't proclaim it because I really had no reason to, kind of deal.
Yeah.
As a side guy, like I said, in the dark, like when I decided to make the shift, and this shift has been happening for a while because I've been writing songs for a while now and co-writing and stuff like that. And when in 2018, when Chad called me up and he said, I signed on with another record label. So they're cleaning house, and guess who's going, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, me, right?
Yeah.
So which is expected, you know what I mean? Because he went to an American label from a Canadian label, MDM. You know what I mean? Where it's like
Yeah.
you're no longer a person, you're just a number, and they took one look at me and went, who's that scary hairy guy there?
He doesn't fit the brand.
I think he's not good for your hockey brand. You know what I mean? I'm a
Yeah.
hockey player guy, right? You know what I mean? I'm thinking, well, it worked for 7 years with MDM, but okay.
Yeah.
So I decided then, I said, you know what? I'm done being an artist. Sorry, I'm done being an artist. I'm done backing up artists. I want to be an artist.
Yeah.
I'm done being a side guy. And I play with Black Mountain Whisker Rebellion. That's the other project that I'm in, and that formed right after myself and Brownlee parted ways, so to speak. Clayton Bellamy, sorry, in the congregation. I do work with Clay as well, but I don't do any more freelancing, and I'm not going to do any more artist work. Like, I was Lindsay L's bass player. I was Jess Mosklu's bass player. I was Amos Garrett's bass player, Chad Brownlee. So I think I've been there and done that, kind of deal. And then when all this here, let me preface by saying in November 2019, I was down in Nashville doing a Black Mountain video and writing, and I was doing a gig with Clay for Triumph Motorcycles. And I was going around to war memorials because they're everywhere, in Nashville. And I started thinking, it's the Civil War. And I started thinking, did any First Nations fight in this war? Because it's not documented. It's always documented that, white against white. And I went down that rabbit hole, and I found out that my own tribe, Mi'kmaq, were involved in that war. They fought alongside of the Confederates because the Union broke every treaty that they could with the Indian, right?
Yeah.
And when I mean by Indian, I mean First Nations, right? Indigenous. So I went down that, so I wrote my first song I wrote was called The Treaty of Watertown. And it's all about that, where it's like the First Nations, and there was lots of different nations, like just besides Mi'kmaq, there were like Dakotas, and like they were all there, like, and they were all fighting with the Confederates. And then once the Confederates capitulated, went, okay, we want peace, because generally when he didn't want his beautiful South being destroyed anymore, or the people dying. Well, that left the First Nations like, well, what about us? We fought with you. Now you're lodging us, right? So now that's when the reserves started, was the Treaty of Watertown. And not a lot of people know that. It actually started in the States, right? And so then I started doing further research on other First Nations, and I started finding war heroes, I should say, that fought in wars: World War I, World War II, Vietnam, right? And Korea's War. And so I wrote an entire album about that, dedicated towards First Nations. They're all forgotten now. That played a very, very important, pivotal role in battles and wars throughout history that we don't know, about, like, kind of deal, right? It's not common knowledge, like, and what I want to do is educate people on this and go, like, you know what, like, this is like First Nations have been fighting in white people's wars for years, and what do they get out of it? You leave a reserve, and after 4 years you're gone. So they come back after a war, and their home is gone, and they got nothing, right? They're left with nothing. Like, I wrote a song about one Indigenous soldier for the next record, and he couldn't even afford a pair of shoes, right? So, like, my first line on that song was, I died with my boots on, couldn't afford new shoes, right? Sniper in the Great War died in 52, and so, like, that's these stories that I've come to compile, and it's history. Like, that's the other thing too, is part of history. These are actual characters. These are actual people who lived and died, that we don't know about. So my album, Point of No Return, is dedicated towards this year. And my first single, Never Coming Back from Vietnam, will be dropped on April 29th. So that's what's going on with that. So, and there's a whole lot of work as well. Being a side guy, you just wait by your phone and you get a set list, and here's the show, Greg. That's all I've ever done, right? You know what I mean? And now
Yeah.
it's like,
Now
now
you're running the show, man.
I'm
Yeah.
running the show, and it's like, and I'm all by myself. I'm not signed,
Yeah.
with anybody, right? Like I'm doing this all by myself.
Not yet.
Well, not yet. I'm like, then again, I don't know if I want to sign because I'm doing all
Yeah.
the hard, I'm all doing all the heavy lifting here.
I'm
I
just
wanna-
throwing out all the good shit into the universe, Moose.
yeah, I
That's
know.
what I'm doing here.
What I don't want, I'm just going to put that out there. All your record labels looking at me. I'm not going to have you come in and turnkey operation, just walk in and take my publishing and all that and go, hey, well,
Yeah.
this is like, I'm old enough to know the difference.
Yeah.
So unless they do a really fair deal, right? But anyway,
Yeah.
but at the same time, bottom line, I'm all by myself now, and I do have a small team. I have Rob Pape out of Road Warren Productions in Medicine Hat. He's my grant writer. I'm kind of being my de facto manager. I have Dale Speaking and Lori Brown doing my radio tracking.
Yeah.
I have Sean Head, the Canadian dad. He's doing my social media. I'm terrible at social media. Now I'm getting, holy man, you're on social media every day. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm like,
Like, I got a guy for that.
I got a guy for that now, right? So, and that's the other thing too, is like these things here. Like, I don't have time to do social media. Like, I got a billion other things that I got to do. Well, I have to do social media, but I have someone to post it for me. Times when there's a good time to post and all that fun stuff, which I never had to pay attention to before.
Yeah.
Clearly, you know what I mean? Until now. And now it's a whole different game. I did my first festival in Medicine Hat at the Tongue on the Post Festival, which was virtual.
Yeah.
Actually, I had a lot of hits from people from Texas, actually, because I wrote a song about Texas,
Awesome.
about the Comanches. And it was a lot of fun. And it was a big difference, though, like being front and center. And I said that. I said, this is surreal for me, being front and center with 5 cameras on me and not being by the side of the drummer.
Yeah.
Looking at
The guy in the back.
the artist on front and center, and I was like, I'm there now. So it's a lot of work, getting up at 6 o'clock every morning, and it's okay. Well, like what I has to be dotted and what T has to be crossed. You know what I mean? What like Bob Seger said, what to leave in, what to leave out. You know what I mean? So like that's where it's at now. But I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
And a new music video is going to be coming out as well to support Never Come Back in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's all that's coming out here. So, and a new record, and here I'm like releasing this record. I'm already writing, like I already have the next record already pretty much ready to go.
That's the way the business goes, though, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I'm back in the studio again in September to record the next record. And here we are in March talking about releasing the record, but that's like you said, that's how it goes, right? And once you get in that, in the machine, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, release, record, release, record, so.
Well, I hope that you will take moments along the journey, Moose, to sit and enjoy the moments, because I think that when we look so far ahead sometimes, and this industry is really good at pushing that you start to get too caught up. So I want you to still slow your roll a little bit and enjoy those moments as they come, because this is yours, and I'm so excited for you.
Oh, thank you, Jody.
Now, how did you come up with Moose? So with the rebrand, obviously you didn't want to be known as Greg Carroll, the best bass player in Canada. You wanted to be known as your solo artist name. So how did Moose come into play?
Well, that was a 2-hour-long Zoom meeting. Someone from Nashville, someone from Medicine Hat, someone from Toronto, you know what I mean? And it's the hammering this out, just like we're talking about right now, and hammer it out. And I should preface by saying my nickname when I was in university was Moose, right?
Yeah.
So when I got to university, they just start calling me Moose because they said you're kind of like a moose. Right? I'm like, that's why I didn't. That's my Indian name. Like that's my Mi'kmaq name is Moose.
Yeah.
So I thought that was serendipitous.
Yeah,
and everyone just started calling me Moose. And then I carried that when I came out here. Like when I first moved out west from the East Coast, I'm from Newfoundland originally, and I moved to Saskatchewan. I moved to Moose Jaw. Actually, I
Of
did.
course. I was like, you have to have lived there for at some
I
point.
moved to Moose Jaw. Why not? Why not move to a city that I'm named? That my
Yeah.
name comes from. And nobody knew me as Greg. Even my friends today don't know me as Greg. They you
Yeah.
know what I mean. They
Everybody
never
just
call me
calls you
Greg. It's
Moose.
Moose. It's
Yeah.
always Moose. So then it's like, okay, now with the branding, with the name, the other thing too. Greg Carroll is a common name. I didn't know there was a preacher named Greg Carroll. That there's
Oh,
a an undertaker named Greg Carroll. There's a like it goes like there's a lot of Greg Carrolls, and my middle
you
name
had
is
to
William.
Google yourself. That probably feels
And
weird.
I couldn't Google, and that's right. I
Yeah.
try and Google Greg Carroll. Who are you going to get? You're going to get everyone else but me.
Yeah.
And this is still in the process of changing here too, by the way, because I got to change my email address on my website and all that, and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Because my email
It's
now is
almost like you got married again.
yeah, pretty
You know
much
what it's like for the women now in a marriage when you have to change every single thing. Yeah.
right. So now it's like I got to go and change emails and da, 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 da. But Moose, we were just going to go with just Moose. Like that was my vote. Just go with Moose.
Yeah.
And then but once again it's like you go on Google search on moose and it shows you all these different species of moose. Right.
Which is lovely,
Which
however.
I
Yeah.
love, I love moose. Like they're majestic animals and I love eating
Oh,
them too.
yeah.
you know
Everything about them is great. It's a good fit for you.
you
Yeah.
know so it just became that way. It just became we decided to go with Moose Carroll, and that way there's still the connection as well with me with Greg Carroll. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, right, you were the guy who used to play with, and but at the same time it's part of my indigenous name, and there's and there was a sense that we had to get Moose in there because that is my Indian name, right?
Yeah.
So we decided to
Which
go
I
with
kind of figured was the case, but
yeah,
I wanted to check and see
yeah.
if that, which is nice because then it feels so much a part of you, but still keeps, I mean, you worked in the industry a long time. And when I say you were the best bass player in Canada, I don't say that as lip service. You were legitimately, I mean, there's other great bass players too, but you were the top of the top. And that history doesn't need to be tossed aside because you're doing something different. I mean, to me, that shows you understand this industry and this business, and you have beautiful history there, I guess.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and it's because I've been around this industry for 1,000 years. Uh, and because of all my knowledge too, not just
Yeah.
connections that I have, it made this process easier than someone who wasn't involved as much as I was. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, um, like like even if the friendships that I forged, I still call up these people and I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
what do you think about this? Like, like I'll still bug MDM, whether it's Mitch or Mike,
Yeah.
and go, hey, what do you think about this? You know what I mean? Because I don't have management. I'm my own manager. I'm my
Yeah.
own agent. I'm my own record label. I'm everything right now, right?
Yeah.
So, but I still like dip into the past and I call up people like, hey, what do you think about this and that? And,
Yeah.
and everyone's pretty happy to do what I'm doing. At first, it's kind of one eyebrow kind of goes up like,
Yeah.
you're gonna after years of being a side guy, you're now
Yeah.
gonna rebrand into being an artist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And it was not something that I've always wanted to do. It's just something that just kind of evolved into songwriting because I've
Yeah.
written songs. And I guess the other thing too is like I've been writing songs the whole time I've been,
The whole
with
time.
these side guys, but you got to get into the club to get your songs, with these bigger guys, you know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah.
and I'm not a Gordy Sampson. I'm not a Jimmy Thau or an Eric Dillon. Like these are the writers, incredible writers down in Nashville. Eric Dillon is lead singer, by the way, for Black Mountain Whiskey Rebellion and did co-writes with
Right.
me on my record, and a good friend of mine. Those guys are like, these
Yeah.
guys are known to be not just songwriters, the best. Like, and I've written with Eric, and holy, they're fast.
Yeah. They've got it
Right?
down to a science now,
Oh man,
right?
but
Like
that's
it's
all they've ever done,
fascinating.
right?
Yeah.
Like Gordy Sampson. I remember Gordy back when I was in Saint Avex, living in Antigonish, Nova Scotia, and Gordy was banging around with a band called Real World and out of Cape Breton, and he was starting to do Rita McNeil, that show that she did,
Yeah.
right? And he was writing great stuff back then, right? That's the whole key to this. You keep writing, you keep doing it, getting better. And for myself, it's like I'm a much better writer now than I was 5 years ago. I'm
Yeah.
a much better writer, than I was for sure. But it takes time, and it's hard to focus on writing songs when you're focused on learning off other people's songs that they wrote. You,
Yeah.
you know, you
You
know what I
don't have
mean?
time for your own creative
Don't have,
space. So
exactly. And I
now you
decided
do.
enough's enough. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I decide, okay, and it's like I'm done being and that's the other thing too. Like, just look at me. Can you picture me with a new young artist coming up? Right? Can you picture this mug, right? As beautiful as it is and handsome as I am, it's just not a good fit for some 20-year-old.
Yeah, it's just like, who's that hairy guy in the back? Yeah. If I was introducing, that's probably what I would say. No, I'm just
Right?
teasing. But well, and I think timing is everything, right? Like creator is making things happen without our knowledge. And so I feel like the timing of you stepping into this is also serendipitous, because now we're moving into an era where sharing the stories of our First Nations, I call them family, our First Nations stories, we're like, they're being told. And although they've always been told, I feel like the world is shifting in a place where we're ready to hear them. And by when I say we, I say the white people of the world. Like, we're more ready to hear these stories than we ever have been, or I sure as the heck hope so. And I love that that's what's coming to the forefront. And the time for you to tell those stories is great. And there's like, I mean, there's so many more indigenous based radio stations now. Like, the
Mhm.
opportunities for you are bigger than they were, say, even 5 to 10 years ago.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And for the record, I've been writing indigenous songs before Indians were cool or in. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I know, and I
Right?
don't mean to make it sound like all of a sudden it's this
No, no,
trend,
I know, and you did.
because
I just
I
want to
give
make
I
sure.
give all the respect, but
Yeah,
it's just honestly like it's gone on deaf ears for so long, and that's the problem. That's the
absolutely. Yep.
major part of the problem. And so I'm just really hopeful, because I have so many friends like you who are First Nations, who I am so excited to be like, however I can be a conduit or a help or a something to get those stories in front of more people like this show.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here to do, is because I don't have those stories, but I sure as the heck want to help you promote yours. Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that. I remember when I was so happy and proud when I came back from Nashville. I just finished writing with the album, and I turn on the news, and there's all these blockades, and I'm like, thanks guys.
You're like, okay,
I'm
so
trying to help you here. I'm trying to help.
yeah,
And I call them the cousins, right? Like I call
yeah.
the tribes like we're cousins. We're all, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, the cousins are blocking the railway tracks. Great.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you. I just wrote this record and now I got to sit on it until people start liking Indians again. Thanks.
Yeah. We always will. How's the response been from your First Nations community and family? Has it been good?
Very positive. Yeah, very
Yeah.
positive. Yep. I'm getting a lot of help. Marcella Williams from Flat Bay, Newfoundland. She's part of my tribe, and she is very knowledgeable. She also did my moose brand,
Yeah.
which is at Foothill Signs that I got to go pick up soon. Uh, that I got digitized.
Yeah.
But she also teaches the Mi'kmaq language, which is something else I'm gonna try and get into, is learning off our language, which is
Yes.
incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she is
That's so
she
cool.
is like she knows her stuff. Like like I mean, like um yeah, she's very inspirational. Like and I talk to her as much as I can, and I she's and I let her know like what I'm doing and stuff like that, and making sure too, that. And she had to consult some elders on some
Yeah.
of my songs too, just to make sure it was okay. So like this was done. There was a lot of thought. There was a lot of there was a big process here involved. It wasn't just I just went and wrote an album. Like there was
Yeah.
some of my songs are pretty touchy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they are like they're songwriter storytelling songs, and some of them are pretty graphic too.
Yeah.
And so I had to get the clearance. So
Yeah.
thankfully I had someone in my tribe where I could call and say, hey,
Yeah.
she's like, okay. And what do you think of this? She's like, I got to talk to an elder about that. And I
Yeah.
went, please do. I said, I won't write anymore until you get back to me. She'll get back to me. So yeah, this is cool. This is good. And
Okay.
I went, okay,
Yeah.
I'll keep doing that then. So a lot of respect, like,
Yeah.
has been in this, throughout this project. And my band is the Halapoo. Halapoo is the Mi'kmaq name for caribou. So
Okay.
the Halapoo Mi'kmaq band.
Yeah. Love it.
Um, yeah, so like that's where, and that's out of St. George's, Newfoundland. we were the last ones to get our status because because Newfoundland joined Confederation in 49. And when we joined Confederation in 49, we were promised then that we would get our status, that we'd be recognized as First Nations. They didn't do that.
Mm.
And it wasn't until Stephen Harper got in and he went, you know what? These guys should have been recognized in 49.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, and it was like, and yes, Stephen Harper did that. It wasn't a liberal government. It was a conservative government
Yeah.
who did the right thing. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So, so thank you for that, Stephen Harper.
Absolutely. Well, and it's just, I think it's baffling. It's baffling to those of us who like don't have First Nations heritage that that's even a real thing. And I think it's just, again, it comes in the education that you're going to continue to do as you tell these stories is for us to learn. Because I think there's so many we don't know what we don't know.
Mhm.
And in my opinion, that's how we move forward as good humans. Is ignorance is one thing, but choosing to stay in it is another. So
Exactly.
I love that you're educating. And I want to be mindful of your time this morning too. So we have a couple of questions.
Yep.
Darlene says she recognizes the name. Did you play hockey at one time?
Beer league.
I don't know which league you're thinking, Dar, but I'm like, I don't know. Did you?
It's funny though that they mentioned that because there was a hockey player named Greg Carroll.
Yeah.
That this actually made global news, and I hate mentioning because it's like, you know, it's all for the wrong reasons. It's like, you know, I was confused with a hockey player, and this fan of this hockey player sent me a hockey card, Greg Carroll, to sign.
Oh. And you're
right?
like, sorry.
And I'm like, I'm not that guy. But anyway, what I did, you know, being a good guy that I can be sometimes, I tracked down the actual Greg Carroll.
Greg Carroll. The real Greg Carroll.
The real Greg
the
Carroll.
The other
Greg Carroll hockey player, who actually was a goon, by the way, when he played hockey.
Well, she recognizes Moose as the name as the hockey player.
Oh,
so I don't know. I guess
right.
There's hockey in your somewhere.
Yeah.
Kelly's daughter Josie went to school with your boys, and so she's wondering if the boys will play in your band at all. Are they musically inclined? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucas will be my bass player, and Len will be my guitar player.
I was just saying, like, how do you pick a bass player?
Yeah.
That would be the scariest audition of my life if I was a bass player to audition for the bass player. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just got one who sounded and looked like me. That's all. So.
Yeah, you just created your own. Good work.
My minion. Yeah.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's early in the morning, but did you want to play a song with us today, or do you want to come back and do that another time, or how you feeling?
Right now. Sure.
Okay. I know we went a little bit over time, so I wanted to be mindful for you.
I've still got lots of time here.
So. Okay.
All right. Well, I guess it's only fitting that I do the first single, which is Never Come Back to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Now put us down. You can actually see my guitar too. There you go. Here's my nice orange guitar. So this song is all about a Mi'kmaq soldier. He wasn't a soldier, but there are no borders with Indians, First Nations. So our tribe Mi'kmaq, we're in Maine as well. So his Maine brothers were fighting in Vietnam. So he felt compelled to go fight in Vietnam as well. Unfortunately, he never came back. And unfortunately, there was nothing left to him to send back. So this is called Never Come Back to Vietnam. This will be the first release, the first single off my record Point of No Return, April 29th. Crossing the U.S. port from Canada up north, a small reserve north of Bangor, Maine. Join my brothers from the south to infiltrate and rout. Fighting's what we do from going insane. There are times in your life and you take on all the strife, and I'm never coming back from Vietnam. My Mi'kmaq wife's at home, my child's all alone. Got a woman inside gone just out of fear. From the forest to the mire, the mango swamp has died. I enrolled in this hell, don't you shed a tear. There are times, can't you see, that I got to be me, and I'm never coming back from Vietnam. Hey! My name is Matthew Basque. My story's told at last. They never found my body in the trees. Forever gone, don't cry. There's a feather in the sky. Things don't always seem what they be. And there's one thing for sure, I can't take another tour, and I'm never coming back from Vietnam. And there's one thing for sure, I can't take another tour, and I'm never coming back from Vietnam. No, I'm never coming back from Vietnam. Thank
you so much. I appreciate. I know that we've gone a little bit long, so thanks to everybody who's hanging out a little bit longer this morning. But I honestly, Moose, I feel like we could talk and share stories for hours. So we're going to have you come back and do more story time with us.
Absolutely. I'd love to do that.
My space is your space. So
awesome.
Whenever you want to share, maybe we'll check in towards the end of April when that song is being released, and we'll have a little more chit chat then and keep sharing stories. And I'm so excited for you. Like, we ran into each other in this past summer, and you told me about this project, and I don't know if you remember, but I was like so excited. I'm just like, okay, what do we do? What do you need? What do you want me to do for you? Like, I'm ready to roll. And you were like, whoa.
Baby steps. Yeah.
So just know you have an enthusiastic supporter ready to roll whenever you need her. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Jody. Appreciate that.
And I appreciate your time this morning, and wishing you best of luck on this project. I think it's going to be amazing. And I'm so excited for the stories you're going to share with the world, and people getting an opportunity to share in that heritage with you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody. Have an amazing rest of your Monday. Cheers to you. And we will see you back here Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Bye, everybody.